Hi, this is Oja, and you're watching the making of RuneCipher. Today we're going to be talking about every dev's favorite subject, user interface. Tip number 1 about UI is that more is always better. How are you going to compete with the shortening attention span of the modern consumer without providing dopamine every moment in your game? Tip number 2, don't explain anything. Everyone knows players enjoy a puzzle when they're looking at their HUD or their stats. Don't rob the player of that sense of discovery. And lastly, tip number 3, consistency is the enemy of the creative. Why limit yourself to one theme for your game when you can surprise the player at every turn? Mix up your fonts. Use the same colors to mean different things. Variety is the spice of life, they say. Now remember those key lessons as we revamp some old UI in my game. Don't get me wrong, I'm no UI expert, but I think over my game dev journey, I've gotten a little better in designing these things. So in this video, I'll share my workflow on designing and implementing UI in RuneCipher. Today I'm going to be working on a unit card. In a strategy RPG, the unit card shows basic information like name, level, class, type of weapon they use, inventory, HP, etc. Now, before we design a new card, let me commit the cardinal sin of game dev, showing early work in public. In the spirit of learning and mild self-humiliation, this is the first unit card I designed in a previous iteration of RuneCipher. I genuinely thought this looked good when I designed it. I thought the frosted glass effect on the panel was so professional looking, and in fact I still think it's kinda cool, but yeah, sometimes you're too close to the project to see it objectively. With the advantage of hindsight, here are all the things that I believe are wrong with the unit card. The portrait is rather small and the resolution sits awkwardly with the rest of the card. The colors are not playing nice with each other, and there are perhaps too many different directions that the design points to. But I think we can learn from this and take some of the positives as well. The frosted glass effect is nice. So for the new design, I'm thinking of going in this portrait orientation I did for the battle menu. They kind of look like tarot cards. If you can guess what strategy RPG inspired this, drop a comment down below. I like this design direction currently, but might change it down the road. But for now, let's go with this. The first thing I like to do is doodle a quick draft of the idea on paper. This will let you easily iterate on design ideas and test them out. While you're doing this, I highly suggest looking up different ideas for UI in other games in your genre. You can use Game UI Database if you're working on a more modern genre, but for my game I find it hard to find retro game UI there. Pinterest is where I'd look for anything older. Once you're ready to test your ideas, let's build it in Engine. I created a new scene and started a root control node called unit card. First thing to do is to configure the background panel. In the theme override section, let's get a new style box flat and round the corners to 10 pixels. Let's make the background color look less like a cubicle wall and change the opacity to around 85%. Now we're going to need portrait images for the 2 units I have in the game. I've made these portraits on small canvases to really hone in on the emotion of the character, and not because I'm a one-person team and I need to finish this game before the heat death of the universe. So let's plop that portrait onto the panel, and wow, that already looks pretty decent. Now let's add another panel for the unit name. I'll also add a margin container and put the label in the margin container. Okay, before we add the text, let's talk a little bit about fonts. Genuinely, this is one of the most important design decisions you can make for your game. The font reveals so much about the genre, the mood, and atmosphere, so take your time in deciding the font pairings you will use. I find this decision particularly difficult because there are infinite fonts out there. How do you know which is the right one? My plan with RuneCipher at least is to study games in my genre and go with my gut. This is something I want to revisit time and again to make sure it's working in the context of my larger design ideas. So for now I decide to go with this sans serif font for the name label. RuneCipher is a medieval fantasy game with some Magitech elements, so this kind of a modern font still fits the theme. Okay, next up let's set another panel for the class, a margin container, and a label for the text. For the class name, I've selected a slightly different sans serif font. I think this font works quite well with the font for the name. Next, we need to work on some quality of life features. RuneCipher will have weapon types that have advantages over other weapon types, so I want the players to be able to tell the weapon of a unit from a quick glance. For that, I've added a weapon type texture to show the weapon icon, and next to it the inventory slots for 5 items. It's a good way for the player to think about their resources without going into menus. Alright, and the last thing we need to add is an HP bar. This we will add to the bottom of the unit card. For now, we'll keep things simple and add a progress bar for the HP. Let's change the background color to match the base panel and round off the corners to make it seamless with the rest of the unit card. Almost forgot one crucial information we haven't added yet, the unit's level. For that, all we need is a V-Bucks container and 2 labels, one for the level text and one for the level number. I'm placing these in stark white to contrast with the rest of the UI elements and pop out on the unit card. And the final touch is this equip tag to show the player which of the weapons is currently equipped. And that's everything we need for the UI. I think this is a good balance of aesthetically pleasing, readable, and useful for the game. And I think it's certainly an improvement on the old design. So let's run it in the game and see how it looks. I think this is looking pretty solid. The portrait pops, all the key stats are right there at a glance, and the whole thing just feels clean. Obviously this is going to evolve as the game comes together. I'll tweak and polish it more, but for now, this is a solid foundation to build on. If you found this video useful, consider liking the video. It helps me out. If you want to see more RuneCipher or learn about game dev, consider subscribing to the channel. I hope to bring more videos about custom lighting systems, shaders, and possibly more UI. Until next time, stay tuned.